Hey there. If you have been dealing with a drop off in sales, you may be bringing in the same number of leads, you may be talking to the same number of prospects, but you are closing, not closing the same number of sales. You can tell yourself, well, it's summer, there's a drop off in the summer. It's a holiday, there's a drop off at a holiday. It's winter, nobody's buying. Inflation. Are we in a recession? Are we not in a recession? Is there going to be one? Is there not going to be one? There's always a reason externally that we can grab onto and say that's why people aren't buying. But if you're continuing to bring in the same average number of leads and prospects, excuse me, but you're not closing the same number of sales, you're not signing the same number of clients, there's a problem that you have to get to the root of. Otherwise, you stay on this cycle of feast or famine. You're not able to invest in the continued growth and strengthening of the business. You are fearful about spending money because you're not sure if money is going to come in. And depending on the size of your organization, let's face it, there's a reputation issue at stake here. People might be questioning your ability to bring in the business. So something has to be done. You may have tried reading every new sales book out there, reading old sales books out there. You might have sat in on webinars. You may even have hired a sales coach, but you're still not seeing an uptick in the number of contracts, clients, however you describe them, that you want. You know you can handle an increased level of business, but you're just working too hard, which is what I typically hear from my clients, is that I'm working too hard for every client that I get. The actual solution is to stop trying to sell. I know that might sound a little wacky, and I'm not talking about some, pie in the sky perspective on things, but I'm really talking about recognizing that old school, old style of selling no longer works. And it is unlikely to ever come back because nobody liked it to begin with. The whole always be closing, please stop it. Nobody has ever wanted to be sold to. And you certainly don't want to appear salesy. So what do? The solution is that you help your prospective clients decide to buy. My name is Winnie Anderson. I'm a content strategist, a brand strategist, and I'm going to turn my cell phone down. And I work with service-based businesses, and I help them create content, create tools that help their buyers decide to buy. And I was talking to a great friend and colleague recently, a few weeks ago, and we were talking about, actually this was probably a month ago. We were talking about, are we in a recession? Are we not in a recession? And the things that we were hearing from those we work with. And I said, I created a kit way back in the financial crisis, just before the whole thing broke. And I'm pretty sure the business is still using it and that it has made them millions of dollars. She's like, what? What are you talking about? And in my move from Jersey to the Buffalo Niagara region, I lost this kit somehow. In your box of samples, I didn't have it. So I reached out to the business. I actually have it right next to me and I'm going to show it to you. Reached out to the business. Hey, if you have one of those laying around, can you send me one? She said, Of course we have it laying around. We use it all the time. We've never stopped using it. And it continues to sell for us month in and month out. It has now brought in about $60 million for this company. And no, I'm not kidding. So this is like the little black dress of marketing tools. And I'm going to explain to you. So I was telling my friend this, and she said, oh my gosh, you have to tell people about it. So I'm like, yeah, I guess I really do have to talk about it. I haven't talked about it enough. So that's what I'm going to share in this video. I'm going to explain how you too can create a tool that works and that will help your buyers decide to buy. It's no secret that we all have an incredible amount of information at our fingertips. And ever since the pandemic, when we were forced to do everything virtual, it showed buyers that, you know what, I really don't need to see that salesperson, and I really don't even need to talk to that salesperson. So I think that the whole sales industry, the sales profession, the function in organizations needs to really wake up to the fact that buyers don't want their time wasted. They want to make the best decisions for them. They recognize that salespeople, and they see you as a salesperson. If you're, a soloist or whatever role you play, they see you as a salesperson. They know that you've got a vested interest in hearing them say yes. So they naturally feel pressured, and they're going to take with a big grain of salt anything you say. But when you create instructional content that I refer to as pre-selling, buyer enablement content, you are pre-selling them to decide to work with you, and you are doing 4 major functions. You're educating them, you elevate yourself at the same time, you inspire them about what the future holds if they decide to go with your solution, and then you invite them to take the next reasonable step in their buying process, and you guide them along their journey. That's how this works. Whether you're selling something, a few $1,000s, or you are selling hundreds of thousands of dollars or more, buyers need the kind of information that is going to help them make the best decision for them. So I'm going to, in the next 50 minutes or so, I'm going to explain the logic behind this kit that I created, and I'm going to explain how you can apply the same logic. Now, the pieces might end up being a little bit different, but the logic is the same. So if you really take the time to think this through, you can probably figure it out on your own. If you need more help, of course, I'm going to tell you how I can help you, and I'll share that at the end. But I promise, take good notes, because this will really share, and I've got notes here that I'm going to be looking at. This will really tell you exactly what you need to do. So way back when, I was working at an agency, and I used the same logic to help the agency get off the ground and really position them uniquely and continue to grow. So I was first doing work that was primarily for the agency. Then I started working with clients. And one of our favorite clients was a guy who ran the region's largest roofing and siding company. So it was an established business with a clear offering, something that people both needed and wanted. So, but Larry came to me one day. We were in the same networking group. He came to me after the lunch and said, hey, I've got a problem I'd love to talk to you about. So we met back at the office, and he explained that he was bringing in the same number of leads every week, but he wasn't closing the same number of sales. He couldn't figure out why, because nothing else had changed. I'm going to tell you why he wasn't bringing in the same number of sales and how I came up with the solution that not only brought him back to parity, closing the same number of leads, but took him beyond that and helped him to close more leads faster and easier to the tune of $400,000 in the first 4 months that he used my tool. And as I mentioned, sorry, my allergies are kicking up. That it continues to work for them year after year, and they average about $4 to $6 million, I think, in sales. So you do the math. That means they brought in about $60 million with this particular kit. So once I listened to Larry's process, it was easy for me, an outsider, to recognize what his buyers were missing. And it took me about 2 weeks to have a mock-up created for him. And what I created was this kit. And the kit, I'm going to tell you all the features, and then I'll explain the logic behind it. So the kit, as you can see, there's a great picture of Larry and his beautiful family on there. There's a great quote that I wrote, and his company's logo is down here. This kit is 3-dimensional. Yes, it's physical. You know what? Before I go any further, I'm going to share one thing. I do not want you to sit here and say, yes, but I'm not a roofer. I don't want you to sit here and go, yes, but I can't print something like that. It's too expensive. I don't want you to think about that. I want you to listen to what I'm going to share and think, how can I make this work for me? What can I borrow? And at the end, I'm going to explain how you can adapt this if you're all digital. But I really want you to think, how can I make this work? What part about this process and this logic will work for me? Okay, back to the story. So anyway, this kit, you'll notice it's about, I guess that's 11 inches, right? It's the size of basically a piece of paper, maybe a little bit bigger. And the reason for that is it's 3-dimensional and it fits in a desk drawer, because the first thing that you want to do when you're trying to come up with a solution to a sales problem is you want to get inside the mind of the buyer and you want to think about the problems that they're trying to solve. And they're trying to solve and manage more than one problem. It's not that they have a leaky roof. That's not the only problem they're trying to solve. So I actually named the kit. I named this a home improvement kit. This actually had a longer name, but they didn't print the whole thing across the top. This is really a home improvement project planning kit. So when you open this kit up, there's again a great picture of Larry in his wrapped van or truck, and a part of a letter that I wrote on behalf of Larry and his signature, right? So it basically says, thank you for considering us for your costs. We know how nerve-wracking making this kind of decision and investment is. And then we talked about his dedication to doing a great job, because you can't just give people the facts, which is what he was doing. When he came to us with this problem, all he was doing was giving people a one-sheet quote. You had to, that's a big, if you've ever paid for a roof repair, you can let me know in the comments. We have, it's tens of thousands of dollars, depending on the size of your house, right? And other issues that factor into the cost. So that's a big investment for people. You have to connect with them on an emotional level. So it's a cognitive as well as an emotional connection. And I don't care if you're selling to consumers or you're selling to other businesses, there is a big emotional component in every purchase. There's risk involved. So people are nervous about making the wrong choice. Okay, so inside of the kit, I don't know if you can see this very well. There are tabs, right? In here, you got Larry's business card, But there are other cut spots. See place card here? There are other cut openings because I wanted this to be so useful that even after somebody gets their roof done, or if they didn't, it was useful for them to store all that crap, that paperwork that you get, that you have, where am I going to keep this? I've got receipts, I've got quotes, I've got samples, I've got all this stuff, I've got proposals. Where am I going to keep them? If you're a homeowner, it's a paperwork nightmare. I don't want to hear about digital, right? So that's what this was for. People were going to be able to use it long after their roofing project was done or anything else, and they would be able to save other contractor information in here, and they could use it for whatever they wanted. So in each tab is divided and has, it's actually a folder, or it's a tab rather, I should say. Yes, folder. I forgot what I had done. It's a folder. Inside of every folder, there is a quote. There, it speaks to things that are important to Larry and things that are important to the homeowner. Now, knowing Larry, right, he's very faith-centered, and he's completely out front with, this is what I believe. And you might be repelled by that. You know what? Good. Then you're not his customer. One of the problems that businesses tend to get stuck into is they don't want to offend anybody. And I got news for you. If you're not polarizing, you don't make the choice clear for people. I'm not saying you have to be a jerk, but you have to really embrace who you are, your values, and you want to attract people who resonate with those values. So Larry was really upfront about that. I want to lead with my faith. He was already doing commercials before he engaged us, and he would say right on his commercials that, this is what I believe. Now, when people heard that I was working at an agency and that we had Larry as a client, some of them said, tell him to stop doing that. And I said, I'm not going to tell him to stop doing it. It works for him. The guy makes millions. I'm not telling him, hey, stop doing what works. So, and I don't want to hear, but he could make so much more. He's happy, right? So part of the point of getting clients is you're not trying to convince them to work with you, and you're not trying to bend yourself so that everybody wants to work with you. You want to be a clear choice for people. And that's the power of building a strong brand. And this was part of Larry's brand. Okay, back to the kit. So in addition to this awesome kit, here was part of my thinking. This is, Larry was the highest priced vendor in the region. How do I know that? I researched it. So why? Again, I talked to him about how he did his process. This is part of what a solid copywriter will do. They are going to do research. They're going to take your word for it, but then they're also going to do research. They're going to do competitive research. They're going to do research into your market. They're going to do research into your customer segments. We call it climbing inside of the mind of the buyer. But we also need to climb inside the mind and the heart of the business owner. We really need to understand the drivers of the business. So Larry was the highest paid. So I don't want to hear people won't work with me because I charge too much money. He's the highest priced vendor in the region and the biggest. He was the biggest brand out there already before he came to us, but he wanted to solidify his positioning. So I wanted to make it an easy choice for people. And when I asked Larry, why are you so high priced? He said, I only offer good and great. He said, I don't offer cheap. I don't offer things that products, right? Because he's selling a service. but it involves physical elements. So he said, I don't want to put in windows, use tiles, or put up siding that I know I can't stand behind. So that means my costs are higher. And I also do these other things. I pay insurance. I pay my employees. I pay them well. All of those things I knew went into Larry's costs and made him the highest price in the area. But what I also knew was that Larry sold to other homeowners. He sold to people like himself. He sold, actually not too like himself, because not everybody's a business owner. He sold to people like me, people who are homeowners and who making a roof repair is an expensive venture. So I wanted them to understand the logic behind his price. And I wanted them to feel an emotional connection with him, that he's a good guy, that he's not going to use shoddy products, that if I spend all this money, I can rest assured knowing it's going to last, the roof's going to last, the windows are going to last, the siding's going to last. And if I need something, they're going to be around. Larry made a profit. He paid himself and all of his employees well. He had paid benefits. He went on vacations. He made good money. He was going to stay in business. He was not just skating by the thread of, by the skin of his teeth, right? So I wanted people to also have something that they would handle. There's a tactile experience here. And when people are reading, they're looking at something and they're physically handling it, it's making a cognitive and an emotional connection with them. So this was going to go in their drawer, their desk drawer, and they would always be able to see it. If they chose anybody else other than Larry, I wanted them to regret it. I know that's bad maybe, but I did. I wanted them to regret it. I wanted them to be haunted by him. I wanted them to open up that desk drawer and see, I should have hired that guy. I wanted to make it easy for them to refer him no matter what. And I wanted to give them something that was so useful, it helped them decide to buy. But this wasn't the only thing that was part of the kit. On top of the kit was a cover letter from Larry. Then there was something that was really powerful underneath that. So everything went in order, and it all was designed to tick the boxes of the mind of the buyer. So the cover letter was very similar to the inside letter here. It said, thanks for choosing us, for considering us, right, for your project. We are never going to be the cheapest solution. I got right out there with it because there was no reason for Larry to be ashamed of how much he charges. I wanted to use it as an advantage. So I thought, I just don't even bother getting other quotes or comparing them because we'll always be higher. If you're going to choose the lowest price, stop now, basically, right? So it was just a few short paragraphs, but it led with that. So I said, we're never going to be the lowest priced vendor. Here's why. And I bullet pointed the key issues that I knew would connect with his buyer, including I don't use shoddy products. I pay my employees a living wage. I pay insurance. I pay taxes. I buy top-notch equipment for my folks. So I was positioning his price as a positive. I then explained, here's what else is in this kit. I hope you find the kit useful for all of your home improvement projects. You know, hope you choose us, right? Bye. So it didn't say exactly that, but you get the point. Very informal, but designed to connect with them emotionally. Now, the next thing right underneath that letter, this was a little bit unusual, but when you think about it, what is one of the worst things about being a homeowner, getting repairs done, right? First of all, if you've ever called or reached out to a contractor and they haven't shown up or gotten back to you, let me know below. Because say never show up, because I know we've been there, and it didn't matter whether we were in Jersey or up here in the Buffalo, Niagara region. Contractors do not show up. They don't call you. Larry always did. He always got back to people. So the other thing is that I knew when you do hire a contractor, often the project goes south. I could go on for hours about projects that we had that in Jersey that just never worked out. We hired in our first house, we hired a wallpaper hanger, and my husband and I were in the house just after the paper had been hung, and we were in the kitchen, and he hugged me. So I'm looking over his shoulder, and I said, "Sweetheart, which way do flowers grow?" He said, "What? Obviously, they grow up with the bloom up." He goes, I said, "Not in our kitchen, they don't." The guy had hung the wallpaper upside down. Upside down. I kid you not. So I knew that complaints about home repair, home improvement companies were just legion. So what I did was I reached out to the state in New Jersey, and I did some research about home repair complaints. And the guy actually told me, the office manager, the head of the department told me, he said, I just looked this guy up while we were having this conversation. And in all my years, 25 years I've been in this job, he said, we've never had a complaint from this guy about this guy. He said, I have to tell you, that's a first. That's impressive. So here's what I asked him. I couldn't use that quote because he didn't want to put himself out there, which I respect. He's a government employee after all. But I said, can we print out the tips that you have? You have a PDF on your website that says, it was basically titled something like 10 ways to avoid getting ripped off by a home repair contractor, something like that. And I said, I'm not going to change them. I just want to print out this PDF and I want to include it in the kit that I'm creating for this client of mine. He said, yeah, go ahead. He said, as long as you don't change anything and it has go ahead. So now I'm actively telling people how to not get ripped off. And it's also kind of like a veiled endorsement by the state. Not really, but So it was very positive. So it went right underneath the letter, telling people what they most wanted to know, how not to get ripped off. And of course, Larry had all of those things that they said to look for. Be sure they're licensed, be sure they're bonded, that they use employees, etc. Larry had all them. So how not to get ripped off, go with Larry. Then I had the kit. You opened the kit, and then you had Larry's quote. So that's how this worked, and it worked like a charm. It brought in $400,000 worth of new business in 4 months, the first 4 months in use, and it has sold consistently ever since then. I need a sip. If you have any questions, comments, please let me know. Ask away. And if you're watching this on replay, go ahead and share your thoughts, ask questions. I circle back and I will respond. Not sure how long I'm going to leave this video up, to be honest with you, because this was kind of a last minute decision for me. And I'm sharing a lot of secrets on this. So anyway, so that's how that kit worked. Now let me explain the thinking behind it and how you can use this. So I have to check my notes here. So I told you the problem, I explained how to solve it, and I explained the pieces of the kit. Okay, So what's the logic I use behind this, and how can you apply it? Number one is you've got to clearly plant your flag and have a strong message and a strong target. You have to really know who you are as a business and as the founder and what you stand for. And you've got to be unwavering in that. You've got to be committed to only attract people who are going to want to work with you. You've got to be okay that that means repelling the wrong people. And it means repelling people who are just never going to make a choice. The biggest thing is for you to get inside the mind of the buyer. Here are some things, you want to write these down. Here are some things that you want to consider when you're crawling inside the mind of your buyer. First of all, what problem are they trying to solve? Now, with a home repair or a remodel, you might think, oh, well, they have a leaky roof, or they want to improve the curb appeal of their house. And that could very well be true. But in improving the curb appeal of the house, that connects with some ego. With repairing the roof, it's not just to keep the rain from coming in. It's to protect their investment. Why do they want to protect their investment? Because a home is often the biggest financial investment that a homeowner will make. So this may ultimately finance their retirement one day. It could be something that they're going to hand down to their children. So in the cover letter that I wrote and in the content, the message that I put in the inside, our homes are our most significant investment, and hiring a contractor can be nerve-wracking. Isn't that what people are thinking? That's what I mean by getting into the mind of your buyer, using their language and confronting the elephant or multiple elephants in the room. You want to think about, and of course, I'm looking at my notes. You want to think about, what about buying this thing is confusing or fearful for them? What is at risk? One thing is, people are often afraid that I'll put this money out and you won't do the job, or that it'll be shoddy, or it won't deliver the return on the investment that I am hoping and counting on. So you have to recognize that people are thinking that, and if they're thinking it, you've got to address it. If you don't address it and someone else does, they're going to be drawn to that person because they're going to seem more honest than you. So pretending people aren't thinking about this is ridiculous. You've got to address the information or the problem, the question. Plus, by doing that, you then are attracting people who are educated about this, and you're answering questions they have before they get to you. So when you have that call, a lot of their big questions, their objections, are already answered. Objections really, you don't want to actually have a conversation with somebody who has a genuine objection. But people use that term objection when what they really mean is questions. I'm never threatened by somebody who asks me tough questions. You should be asking me tough questions. You're going to spend a lot of money with me. So you want to know that this is a good choice for you. And I'm going to be straight with you, just like Larry was straight. And the clients that I work with are straight with the people who are going to buy from them. So trying to hide something, people can recognize it. So you want to make sure that you are really thinking about what's at risk for the buyer. What are they saying to themselves? What are they fearful of? And what has their past experience been? Because often they've been burnt. There's a reason why they're looking at other potential vendors. So you also have to ask yourself, do they have an existing supplier? What would make them unhappy enough that they're looking for somebody else? So some of this depends on your solution offering, your industry, and the market that you serve. So you really want to think about what should they know before they buy? And what are they wondering about? So you want to think about the benefits that somebody would get from working for you with you, and you also want to manage their expectations. So sales really can no longer get away with trying to convince, convert, and persuade. We've got to, I call it pre-selling, and I refer to it as buyer enablement. That means you want to recognize people are going to do their own research. Have the information out there. This is why you create content. And then educate them throughout the process and answer all of the questions that they have, as many as you can before they get to you. Then when you give them the quote, help them understand, ideally help them understand how you price ahead of time. I know that can be controversial. A lot of people are saying, oh, I don't want to talk about my price. I don't give every single detail about my prices because I can't. There's a lot of customization involved in many of the projects that I do, but some of them are packaged, and most of them have minimum starts. So I can at least say, here's the ballpark, here's what impacts the price. A lot of people don't know how to even budget or think about working with somebody like me, a content strategist and content creator, a content designer, and really I'm like a mini micro agency. So how do these projects get priced? How do you work? So I tell people, because if there's anything in that process that they're not comfortable with, yes, they can ask questions if they're on the fence, but if it completely repels them, I want them to go on their happy way and get served by someone else. Because, you know, for some people, working with me isn't easy because it confronts a lot of fears they have, but I digress. Okay, so you want to make sure that you are, right, I referred to it as pre-selling, and the whole process is buyer enablement. So pre-selling is educate, elevate, inspire, and invite, those 4 steps. Buyer enablement, that's like a big umbrella for pre-selling, because what you're doing is you're positioning all of your messaging from the standpoint of the buyer. There's sales enablement and there's buyer enablement. People use these terms interchangeably, and they shouldn't. Sales enablement is stuff that helps you and your team sell. Competitive analysis, that sort of stuff, that's helpful when you're having a conversation. You want to have that information at your fingertips, absolutely. But buyer enablement recognizes that buyers are in charge of the buying process and the buying journey. And buyer enablement means that you give people the kind of content and information they need so they make the decision and they get the job done at every step along the buying journey. If you'd like more information about how that buying journey works, just say buying journey below, and I'll reach out to you with some information about that. I've done other videos about it. Right now I'm working on a white paper and ultimately a book about that very topic. So let me know if you'd like to be included in that and you'd like to get that information. Okay, so you're entering the mind of the buyer. You can hear how complex that is. And it really involves effort, right? And what the process of working with me sometimes will reveal is that you don't know enough about your buyer, or you haven't really made decisions. You haven't drawn a line in the sand. So you want to think about, what are they afraid of? What's the problem? There's a surface level problem. There's the central core problem, the ultimate problem. And then there are these tangential problems. And sometimes the tangential problem will derail your sale. I'll give you an example. So my husband and I, we need a new sofa. We've needed a new sofa for years. There are several tangential problems. The biggest one is that we have cats, right? I do not want to buy a new sofa and have our cats shred it. There's a particular type of fabric that cats don't shred. So we just haven't found the sofa that has that fabric. That's a big tangential problem, because part of me is really afraid that I'll buy this anyway and my cat will decide, yeah, you know what, this isn't so bad, and he'll tear it up. She'll tear it up. The other problem is I got to get rid of my other sofa. Now, yes, there are companies that will take it. I hate having stuff go to landfills. So there are a lot of tangential problems. So if you can address the tangential problems and solve them or help the buyer solve them, that helps speeds up the process. But those tangential problems will derail a sale. Years ago, back in Jersey, we were going to buy I don't know, an appliance, a stove or a dishwasher or something. And we couldn't get rid of what are we going to do with the stove? We were considering two stores. One said for $10 extra, we'll take your stove away. Take it. Gladly pay you money, right? So you really want to think about what is all in the way. So it's the surface problem, the central problem that likely your offering solves. And then there's tangential problems that could derail the sale. And you want to address them. Okay. You want to think about their values and yours, and make sure that you are connecting, because people do business with those who have shared values. You also want to build trust. Sharing this kind of information that nobody else is sharing in your industry segment will raise trust astronomically. Sharing educationally focused information raises trust. People put trust in what they see as something that's teaching them something. So videos, in-depth articles, buyer's guides, kits like this, those kind of videos, did I say that? Those kinds of things will all help your buyers say yes, and they'll show your values. So you really need to be ready to embrace them and communicate them. And you don't just say, we believe in quality. What does that say? Nothing. That's what it says. So you want to make sure that your language isn't trite, and that you're using examples that illustrate your dedication to whatever values you're talking about. You want to be aware of the other options they're considering and confront that, right? Like I did with Larry, we're not going to be the cheapest bid out there. Also recognize that doing nothing is an option for your buyers. So somehow in your content, in your sales process and your messaging, you've got to address, here's what will happen if you do nothing. You certainly have that option. In the case of your roof, it's going to get worse, right? And then what's going to happen? You get sheetrock damage. Now you got a bigger project, right? So not addressing a problem often leads to something bigger, but life is full of addressing the flame of the moment, the problem of the moment. And your buyer and you, right, are constantly moving things from the front burner to the back burner and deciding which problem is the most pressing, which one needs to be solved right now. So you want to think about what's at risk for them. What do they want to know about the whole thing that your competitors aren't sharing? Talking about price, talking about the risk, the pros and cons, right? One con about a roof project, back to Larry, was the mess of the work site. They go around, and we had Larry actually repair our roof, never found a nail, right, in the grass. I mean, these guys are religious about making sure the work site is clean. That's nice, right? So you want to think about all of those little things, confront them, and communicate about them. So you want to talk about how you work, and you want to, I thought I had turned that off. I did now. So you really want to think about how you work, what's non-negotiable, what are you flexible on? And you want to talk about that, pros and cons of that stuff, right? So be very, very clear. You want to help them, just like I helped Larry's customers justify the price. We all rationalize the price, how we work. We buy something based on emotion, even in B2B, and then we justify it to ourselves, right? I just bought a car. Some of you know I've been sharing the trauma of car buying today. And we had to do a lot of rationalizing about paying that price, because yikes, our car's expensive. But, I drive a lot. This car's really safe. So help your buyer understand those things so they can rationalize what they want to rationalize on their own. And that might talk about return on investment. How is this going to help them? What do they aspire to? And how will this help them achieve that? You want to make sure that you, one of the things, before I go on, one of the things that helps them rationalize, especially when you're selling services, is that you have everything branded effectively. So you have branded packages, you have branded frameworks. This helps them also understand how to work with you and then how to choose. And it helps show value. When you're selling services, they're the intangible, and you often have a hard time communicating that. So it helps to really brand your frameworks and your packages. So it's like Cheerios. I want a box of Cheerios. Do I want a small, medium, or large box of Cheerios? And what's in the Cheerios, right? They're heart healthy and all this stuff. So you want to be able to talk about the benefits in a very branded way, and your frameworks, how you do the work you do. Take the user experience into consideration. That's how I came up with this kit idea. I wanted to make sure that the total experience was tactile, and I took into consideration the totality of what a home remodeling project would involve. And that's how I came up with the kit idea. People are often afraid of making the wrong decision. Then they get caught up in indecision. This is where a self-qualifying tool can come into play. You can have this on your website. You can have this as part of your kit. Whatever kit you make up can have a few pieces. It can have a lot of pieces. It can be digital, it can be physical, whatever is best for you and your clients. But at some point in the process, there needs to be a self-qualifying tool that helps them recognize that I got to talk to you. I've got to take the next action. I've got to ask for a quote. I've got to have a conversation about getting this customized or whatever that is. So you want to make sure that you're making it easy for them, that you're making it painless for them, you're making things simple and clear for them. Okay. A self-qualification tool can be an assessment, a quiz, even one question can be a self-assessment. And self-assessment qualification tool helps them recognize I'm ready for the next step. And if they're not ready, then you can send them to something else on your website or in your process, right? So whether they fill out a questionnaire that triggers something that tells that they're not a great prospect for you. Oh, you know what? You don't meet the qualifications for this, so why don't you go over here? So there are lots of ways for you to do this. And part of it is figuring this out. So ideally, we're going to wrap this up. Ideally, you're going to help them choose. And you want them to choose. It doesn't have to be you. The key thing here is you've got to detach from the outcome. You want people to get their needs met. You want them to have their problem solved. And you don't want to work with crappy clients. You don't want to work with clients that are not a right fit for you. So you want to help them self-select out of the process, and because that's going to increase your overall profitability. So you want to help them choose, package the information into useful tools. You'll have several, right? And you can, because it's digital. You don't have to produce the zillions. I thought Larry produced way too many of these when he first bought it. But, when you get something printed, the more you get, the lower the price. So you have print on demand as a feature now where it really wasn't back then. So only print out the number that you need. And there's an advantage to printing things out. You can always send them to people. Is that expensive? It depends on your definition of expensive, and also what's the total value of a customer. You got to spend money to get clients. How much are you willing to spend? And you're spending money when you talk to people as well. And are you talking to people that aren't really well qualified? Then that means your cost of client acquisition has gone up. So help them choose, help them see the value in working with you, help them see the value, the return on investment that they're going to get. Take the buying experience into consideration. This just created a tremendously powerful buying experience for Larry's customers. include that self-qualification tool. And I have to tell you that this was so great. I actually was in a little networking group, breakfast club that with friends. I'm going to take a sip because my throat's bothering me. And they were all in various aspects of marketing and branding. One of them was a friend who she specialized in law firm marketing. But of course, we all have friends in plenty other businesses. And she had an electrician come in and he had Larry's kit. And he threw it on her desk and said, I want this. She said, I can't give it to you. It's my friend's. That's her. She did that. If you want that kit, go work with her on it. She'll design one for you. So this was so desirable that other businesses actually wanted one. And I was creating one for an insurance agency that was even more exciting because that kit was going to help upsell and help bundle insurance policies. So that would have been great. If you want to know more about the insurance kit that I was creating, just say insurance kit below and I'll be happy to give you some information about that. So at a bare minimum, here's something totally simple that you can do. This is something I created for myself because I didn't even realize that I was following the buyer enablement process before I even started to use it. So anyway, I created this document for myself. It's like a printed newsletter. And you can see these are back in the day images, not exactly the highest quality. And what I had was, this was as online marketing was really taking off. I know this seems ancient. So it was 10 trends in online marketing. And these are still true today, most of them, except for maybe number 9. So it had a couple of articles. It also explained my process without explaining my process. It educated people on how customers buy, which is part of what I use when I work with customers. So it was selling them on my line of thinking. And it also had testimonials on it, and it had a call to action. So of course, you want to have those things too. You want to make sure that you're getting in the mind of the buyer, you're giving them the information they need, that you are taking the user experience or the buying experience into consideration, that you're helping them decide to buy, you're also helping them self-qualify, and that you have a call to action. Because people are going to give out, they're going to share your information, right? I'm going to real quickly explain this. Find my notes here. So you want to recognize that people are going to share your information. It's one of the most important things about your marketing, is that it should be shareable. So you want to make sure that you've got a call to action on everything that you're putting out, because somebody could get it who was outside of the process, and then they want to get into the process. So they need to know where to go, right? So that's why you always need a clear call to action. And at some point, it becomes difficult to figure out where people come from, where your leads come from. That's part of what you have to accept. But overall, you want to make sure your information is discoverable, that it's useful, that it's shareable, that it is remarkable, that it is so valuable that people are going to talk to other people about it, and that it is helping people decide to buy. It's not selling them. All right, so and then that was a lot of information. I was talking pretty fast. So if you have questions, don't hesitate. Hey, Georgia, as usual, you are nailing it. Oh, thank you so much, Georgia. That's so nice to hear. I'm so glad that you were able to make it. I didn't even recognize that you were there. Sorry. So if you have any questions, feel free to post them. How can I help you in creating your kit? Kits are really such a high value tool to have as part of your sales process. This kit was used at the prospect point in the buying journey, right? People come in, their leads, they might not know anything about you, but when they're a prospect, they have done more than just opt in for free information. They've said, I want a quote. I want to talk to you. So you want to make sure that before you have that conversation, that you're getting ahead of their questions and their concerns. So job one is to really look at where's the problem in your sales process. So I do an audit of the buying journey and the selling process, and I look for opportunities that, low hanging fruit kind of thing that can bring in sales quickly. So if you are interested in having an audit, I can do a mini audit, which is just looking at from prospect to sale and where are people dropping off. I can do that mini audit for you. You must, in order to qualify for that mini audit, you must be bringing in leads who are becoming prospects. If you're not bringing in leads, you have a different problem. And that requires a different assessment. So I don't want to say anything about price or packaging or that kind of thing on this video because I don't know how I'm going to use the video or even how long it will go up. But if you'd like more information, just say the word and I will be happy to reach out to you. You can shoot me an email at winnie@winnieanderson.com. And you can also leave me a message on this video on whatever platform you're watching it, and I will get back to you as well. I'm all over social media on LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. So reach out to me, and I'm happy to conduct an audit and to really figure out where are people dropping off, what do they need in order to say yes and decide to buy so you're not selling. If you have a bigger issue or you don't know where to begin, I'm happy to have a next best move conversation, which we can then figure out exactly what your needs are. All right. Again, I only work with service businesses. So if you sell a physical product, I'm sorry, but I don't work with physical products. I'm happy to try to refer you to somebody who could. So that is it. I'm exhausted and it's hot in here. I'm underneath these lights. So have a great rest of your day. Again, ask questions, share comments. If you know that other people would benefit from this information, have value, be sure to share it. All right. Have a great rest of the day. Wish you all the best. Remember, the secret is in buyer enablement, helping buyers decide to buy, not in selling and chasing. All right, this has been Winnie Anderson, brand and content strategist, and look forward to working with you one day. Bye for now.